stream. What a day, and what a shocking update we have from the district court in Texas in the Outsourcing Facilities Association lawsuit against the FDA over the shortages of compound Tirzepatide. This is wild. If you're just joining here, I'm Dave Knapp, man on the Mounjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Mounjaro, Zepbound compound. This is what we're talking about today, is the shortages over Tirzepatide, the branded versions being Mounjaro and Zepbound. And there is a massive update. Now, this was removed from the FDA shortage list, which has tons of implications when it comes to compounded versions of these. We've covered this extensively at onthepen.com. So if accessibility, shortages, compounds, availability of branded medications is an important topic to you, you need to stop what you're doing right now, including watching this. You need to go over to onthepen.com. You need to scroll to the bottom of the page and take literally 10 seconds to sign up for email alerts so that you never miss an update, because we've been following this super, super closely. And there is a massive update out of this court today. But I do want to take a moment, since we are live streaming today, to acknowledge everyone in the chat. J-Neb, DJ, Sue the Dude, good to have you here. How are you all doing today? Julie, Sabrina, Mrs. Bell, Daphne, Sin, Michael Clanton, Christy. We've got a lot of folks joining us today. Welcome. Hit the like button, the thumbs up button. And if you're on YouTube, make sure that you hit subscribe. About 35% of our viewers over here are not subscribed to the channel. So subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you know when we go live, so that you never miss an update like this. We're going to get into this update today because it is shocking and it does have massive implications for the compounded versions of these medications. Now, before we get too far into that, I did want to bring something to your attention. Like I said, we've been following this very closely at onthepen.com, including our most recent update from late last week, when Eli Lilly essentially moved to insert themselves into this trial. Now, if there's a lawsuit, I'm sorry, I always say a trial. I'm not a lawyer any more than I am a doctor. Lawsuit. This is a lawsuit brought by the Outsourcing Facilities Association, basically questioning the merits of the FDA ending the shortage list. Now, back in December, they finally doubled down, the FDA did, and they said it is off of shortage. And then they presented to the court, here's basically the information that we use to make that determination. Now, within that information, there are a bunch of redacted materials that the Outsourcing Facilities Association has not seen yet. Now, the judge, after reviewing this over the last few days, reviewing this material, had set a court date of this Friday, the 10th of January, in the trial to basically allow the OFA to view those redacted materials and then to make a determination on whether or not Eli Lilly could interject into this lawsuit. Now, if there's a lawsuit going on and you have a personal or business interest in the outcome of that case, you can inject yourself into that case. It just has to be approved. Well, there's a major update today in this. Daphne with a $19.99 super chat over on YouTube. Thank you for that. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel here. But these gifts like this, like Daphne just gave, are always appreciated, but never, ever expected. But thank you nonetheless. I appreciate the support on the pen here. So we're going to get into a couple of things here. I do want to just speak to the shortage here for a moment, because one of the things that we did in an article that we shared last week is I just put up a simple poll, and I don't know how well you can see this or not, but in this poll, I basically asked folks who were visiting this specific blog post, which has over 2,000 views. In this blog post, 178 people participated in the basically poll that I put in here. The poll itself says, have you experienced shortages of branded Mounjaro or Zepbound in the last 30 days? And of those 178 people that responded, a whopping 69% answered in the affirmative, saying, yes, indeed, I did deal with shortages of compound Tirzepatide this month. Branded Tirzepatide, Mounjaro and Zepbound this month. And so that is a stunning number. Of course, all of this is anecdotal, and we eagerly await transparency as to how the FDA made this determination. It's actually one of the things that over at onthepen.com we have been advocating for is more transparency in this whole process. As patients, we ought to know, as patients and taxpayers, that the system is being followed appropriately, that the shortage reporting is being done appropriately so that we can best advocate for ourselves in all of this. We are the patients. We are the ones that are most affected by all of this. And so we should have transparency. We've actually put up a policy for the people reform request at policyforthepeople.com. This is a website put up by RFK Jr., the incoming potential director of Health and Human Services in the Trump administration. And we believe that some major reform has to happen to this process. But I digress here. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of exactly what happened today. But I thought that poll was interesting. Let's take a look. There was a filing in court this morning. We're going to read this together here, and then we're going to parse it out with the help of Chat GPT, of course, because I am no lawyer. So you're going to have to take everything here with a somewhat of a grain of salt. But I do have an ongoing conversation with Chat GPT over this topic. And so I've been able to, Chat GPT just makes stuff up sometimes, but I feel pretty good about it helping me to interpret what's happening here in this document. Well, we're going to read it together. Today, the United States District Court for the Northern District of Texas, Fort Worth Division, in the case or the lawsuit between the Outsourcing Facility Association and others versus the United States Food and Drug Administration and others. Here is the order issued this morning from Judge Mark Pittman in this trial. The order: before the court is Eli Lilly and Company's motion to intervene, ECF number 34. Plaintiffs have filed notice that they withdraw their opposition to the intervention. So let's pause right there. That's basically the Outsourcing Facilities Association are the plaintiffs in this case. What they have done is they've withdrawn their opposition to Eli Lilly joining the case. ECF number 50, the court finding that good cause exists for Eli Lilly's intervention in the case under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 24, hereby grants Eli Lilly the motion to intervene. So what happened there? Well, basically, the Outsourcing Facilities Association has said, we no longer object to Eli Lilly joining this lawsuit. Of course, objecting to that was probably a futile effort anyway. Pretty easy for Eli Lilly to show the court, hey, we have a vested interest in the outcome of this particular lawsuit. So the OFA no longer sort of opposing Eli Lilly's intervention. And then the court subsequently ordered that Eli Lilly has been granted their motion to intervene. So that's the first thing that happened. That's the first bit of breaking news this morning. This is not anything that was on our radar for happening before January 10th, which is Friday. So let's move on. While this order resolves half of the matters set for a hearing on January 10th, that was Eli Lilly's motion to intervene, the court finds it appropriate to continue with the hearing as scheduled. So the January 10th hearing will go on. The court finds it prudent to do so for two reasons. So why will they still have that hearing? Well, first, having reviewed the submissions in this matter, the court anticipates that the parties may have dispute over the FDA's production of confidential information, which serves as the initiating action for the proposed briefing schedule. So let's pause there. The court has basically reviewed the submissions that the FDA has made to the court as to the resolution of the shortage of Mounjaro and Zepbound, the branded versions of Tirzepatide. If you're just joining, hit the thumbs up button and share this somewhere where people with compound medications rely on compound medications. This is breaking news in the court in the Northern District of Texas, where essentially the Outsourcing Facilities Association, who represents outsourcing facilities associations, which are 503B compound pharmacies, are suing the FDA over the ending of the Mounjaro and Zepbound shortage. For those of you who don't know what those are the Tirzepatide injections that are making the news as weight loss shots, right? That's what they're referred to often in the news, but it's Zepbound and Mounjaro, manufactured by Eli Lilly and Company. One for the disease of diabetes type 2, and the other for the treatment of chronic weight management. Now, essentially what has happened here is the FDA has given documents to the court basically outlining the information they used to resolve the shortages. And within that information are what the FDA and Eli Lilly have deemed to be basically industry protected or proprietary information. So this was submitted to the court with redactions that the Outsourcing Facilities Association has not been privy to yet. And that was all sort of what was going to get hashed out on the 10th. So the court, basically having looked at those documents, is going, yeah, the OFA is probably going to have issues with that. So basically the motion to or the hearing that was set for January 25 or January 10th of 2025 here lives on. So CECF number 38. Second, the court believes that the consolidation is appropriate and would like to convert the plaintiffs. This is huge. Would like to convert the plaintiff's impending motion for preliminary injunction. So let's pause right there. The motion for preliminary injunction. What does that even mean? This is legal speak. And this is, again, where I'm sort of relying on what I've been told by attorneys, coupled with, the conversing with ChatGPT over this. Basically, because I'm not a doctor, again, not a doctor, not a lawyer, just a guy on YouTube. So essentially, basically what the Outsourcing Facilities Association was likely to do was to request that the court basically issue a preliminary injunction. This would basically, I don't know if handcuff is the right word, but basically halt the FDA's enforcement over compound Tirzepatide until this case is resolved. And that is where I have said all along, if they were granted this case could take up to a year to resolve, which would basically mean that compounded versions of Tirzepatide would be safe from FDA enforcement for the duration of this trial. But the second half of this this statement here is where the additional breaking news exists. And we will likely be looking to our friend Lee, who is a legal expert and an attorney, to come on and help make sense of some of the other stuff in here that I just simply do not have answers to at this point. But this is the other major point of breaking news as I see it here. They would like to convert the plaintiff's impending motion for preliminary injunction into a motion for summary judgment under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure, and then it lists precedents. Summary judgment serves as the mechanism for deciding as a matter of law whether the agency is consistent with the APA. Okay, so essentially what they're saying here is, or what the judge is saying here, is that what he is proposing, and we'll hear arguments from the Outsourcing Facilities Association on Friday, is whether they just essentially determine the outcome of this lawsuit right then and there, rather than going through the entire legal process. Basically, he sees enough in here to basically issue a judgment, and he wants to hear from the Outsourcing Facilities Association why they would oppose that on Friday. And so this is wild, because this basically means that the judge is saying, based upon the information that I have here, I feel like I can make a determination as to whether the FDA acted within the law, whether the agency action is consistent with the APA. And so then at the end, he goes, accordingly, each party should come prepared to discuss any issues it may have with the proposed briefing schedule. Additionally, the party should come prepared to inform the undersigned, which is Judge Mark T. Pittman, whether they object to the court converting the motion for preliminary injunction to a motion for summary judgment. Essentially, what this means is that unless the OFA successfully objects to the court's motion for summary judgment, this entire thing could be resolved on Friday. So this is a major breaking news update in the Outsourcing Facilities Association's lawsuit against the FDA. Again, the caveat, I'm no attorney, I'm no doctor, just a guy on YouTube. But we have been following this as close as anybody, perhaps maybe closer than anybody on the entire internet. At onthepen.com, you can follow literally from the first articles that we wrote when this all happened back in October. Back in October, of course, Eli Lilly reported to the FDA that all of the doses of Mounjaro and Zepbound were commercially available, having what I believe was sat on some sellable doses during the third quarter of 2024. That's why they missed certain milestones that they had set for their investors with no real good explanation. If you don't believe me, go back and watch the interviews after or right before and right after the earnings call from Eli Lilly this last time. No real good, clear answers as to why they didn't sell everything they could have, other than we weren't doing any marketing. Well, it wasn't a marketing issue. It was the fact that they had to show the FDA that they had enough sellable doses to meet demand. I firmly believe that at this point, but that is my own speculation on the matter, not a matter of fact. So I think that's what happened. I think that's probably baked into some of the filings here, and I can't wait to see what we're able to see. I've reached out to the Outsourcing Facilities Association. I would like to see if they would like to come back and kind of give us an update. Obviously, it's hot and heavy right now, so I don't expect that anytime soon, but hopefully someday soon here we will hear back from the Outsourcing Facilities Association. Again, we heard from their chief legal counsel who came and visited On the Pen about 3 weeks ago, right before the determination on December 19th to actually permanently end the shortage for Zepbound and Mounjaro. So with that said, I will take any questions that you have in the chat here, but that's the update today, a shocking update. Of course, there will be another update on the 10th, which is Friday, and perhaps maybe even have some members of the community attending that, pending what the weather, how the weather shakes out there. But pretty big implications for compound tirzepatide, as essentially the court is prepared to rule in this case as early as, well, I don't know if the ruling would come on Friday, but essentially the outsourcing facilities will have to successfully object to the court's decision to sort of move forward with a summary judgment here, instead of what the OFA was likely to request, which would be a preliminary injunction against enforcement while the trial goes on. The judge basically saying here, we are going to just wrap this thing up unless the OFA has objections. And so very interesting to see what the OFA will do and how they will respond, if they do, or if we get a quote or a update from the Outsourcing Facilities Association here at On the Pen. We will share that with you right away. We'll put an article up at onthepen.com, but my ask for you today would be, if you're not subscribed here to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's where all the updates happen. And then go over to onthepen.com, scroll to the bottom of the page and sign up for email alerts. That's the best way to stay in touch with the content that we make here at On the Pen. Lots of great content on tap for you this week. We've got a podcast dropping tomorrow. We have a podcast that drops every Tuesday. On the Pen, the weekly dose, which is your weekly dose of incretin mimetic news. And then, of course, our weekly live show that happens every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Central. This past week, we had our friend Adrienne Gledhill, who was a participant in The Biggest Loser Season 3, to share some of her story in GLP-1s. We have a great show every Thursday night, so I hope you'll join us there. Hit the subscribe button. Thank you for being the best part of what we do here at On the Pen. Until next time, have a great Monday, a great week. Hope you're all recovering from the holidays. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up button before you go, and we will catch you on the next one.